to adjust your dial. Ba-da-bum-bum-bum. It's your boy Big Vern. This is App Stupid, the fastest growing sports and entertainment show on these YouTube streets. You're welcome. Holla at us. Big Vern, y'all know how we do it. Shout out to everybody who's been rocking with us. Make sure you check out our prior segments. We talked some Pitt football, I'm talking about tortured Syracuse. That was awful. And that was a game in prime time. So it wasn't like you could look away. You just had to watch that train wreck in real time. Then we pivoted. We talked some NBA basketball, the New Orleans Pelicans. No Zion, no problem. They get rid of the Bulls on their opening night. They play the Portland Trailblazers tonight. The Bulls, they play the Bucks, and there's no way in the world that the Bulls are going to beat the Bucks. Not happening. And this is Milwaukee's opening night. Yeah, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. Then we talk some NFL. When the Rams got rid of the Vikings and how the Vikings, I don't know what that was. And it's like the offense grinded to a halt to where in the second half of that game, all they did was kick field goals. So from the NFL, we pivot and we talk some college football. And I'm not going to hold you. There are a lot of disappointing teams. And this is just us here in the SEC. That this year we thought that they would take a different turn and be better than what they are. And I'm just shocked that Ole Miss is as bad as Ole Miss is right now. 1-2 in the conference, 5-2 overall, 3-1 at home, 2-1 on the road. And as much as I've covered Jackson Dart, as much as I've covered Lane Kiffin, I felt like they should have been better than what they were. They lost to LSU. It's no shame in that. LSU beat them in overtime. LSU's won a lot of close games. After taking that loss to USC opening night, they were able to rebound from that. South Carolina played them really tight down to the wire. They were able to escape that one. They were able to escape Ole Miss. Ole Miss took that horrible loss to Kentucky. Oh my goodness. Kentucky had gotten embarrassed by South Carolina at home. They played Georgia pretty tough. And I guess Marky Mark and the Dummy Bunch had nothing to prove. They came to Ole Miss and, hey, look, throw everything out the window. Let's just see what works. And it didn't work out for Ole Miss. And when you go back and you look at who they were beating to get those rankings, they played Furman. I was like, what? They played Furman, Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, and Georgia Southern. None of those teams are good. None of those teams were good, and they were inflated. And I understand that some of these schedules are made a year in advance, but that's no excuse. That is no excuse for what Ole Miss was doing to inflate their own ranking. And yeah, who's not going to put up big points against Middle Tennessee? Who's not going to put up big yardage against Furman? They beat Furman 75-0. And I mean, yeah, it'll blow you off the pages that you were able to beat Furman, but who's not able to beat Furman? Come on. Now, the reason that I go so hard on Lane Kiffin is that this whole 8 to 12 team playoff that they have constructed in college football, it was really to make cases for guys like him who could never reach the conference championship and have a shot to play for the national title because Alabama and Georgia would be standing right there on its neck. And yeah, it sounded good in theory that if we give this 12-team playoff a shot under the old rules of the SEC and under the old teams that have been grandfathered into the SEC, he would have had a shot. However, insert Texas, insert Oklahoma, and now he's relegated to still being on the outside looking in. He'll be in a bowl series. Yeah, they will win 7 games to qualify for a bowl, but that wasn't the goal this year. The goal for Ole Miss was a national title or competing in that college playoff. And I don't think that they get there. Because they play Oklahoma this weekend, and that's in Ole Miss. I don't know what's going to happen. They go on the road to Arkansas. Arkansas may pull it out because Arkansas upset Tennessee. So you don't know which Arkansas team you're going to get. And if Arkansas pulls this thing out, they've effectively ended any kind of argument that Ole Miss could make to be in a college playoff series. Then you have to play Georgia, and Georgia's going to come to town and they're going to beat the brakes off of Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss, they can make a case for themselves and they can beat Georgia. That would make Georgia a 2-loss team in the conference. And Georgia couldn't play for the SEC championship game because they would be effectively eliminated. But then you get into Florida and then you play Mississippi State. So at least looking at this last bit of gambit games, I don't think they can pull that off. Give me a quick 20 and we'll be back when we, like I said, we'll dig into Alabama. But this is going to be from an unofficial sponsor of the show. Drop the spot. Better pizza, better ingredients. If you got the app open, you can go ahead and check out the Shaq-a-Roni Pizza, $12.99, and that's for members only. And then there's Papa Pairings. You get 2 and more when you pair the papadilla. You get the cookies, you get the breadsticks, and the whole shebang. Papa John's, better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's, make sure you dig in. Better pizza, better ingredients. It's Friday night. You got a pizza, or you're going to Friday night high school football, or you're going to a movie tonight. Make sure you end the night right on Papa John's. This is Big Verge. So when we last left off, we talked about Alabama. Now, Alabama 2-2 in the conference, and then they're 5-2 overall, 4-0 at home, and 1-2 on the road. Now, everybody's losing their shit because Alabama's lost. And they have lost some games. They've lost bad losses to Vandy of all teams. That score did not reflect what was going on in that game whatsoever. And I know Coach Kalen, he's going to coach those guys up and everything. But to watch the temper tantrum that Alabama was throwing and picking up unsportsmanlike calls because they were losing and they were getting shown up, that to me, I was just shaking my head like, wow, you all are horrible losers. Not only after the Vandy game, they survived South Carolina. South Carolina has a really good team, or South Carolina just plays these SEC teams very well. And they were on the cusp of winning so many of these games against so many big opponents. I think next year they need to take another step in that direction. However, Alabama survived, and then they got beat by Tennessee. And that thing, when I watched it, I was just like, oh my goodness. People are going to freak out and they think that the sky is falling because Alabama isn't the most dominant thing that's out there. Now, I will go ahead and tell you, I don't care who the hell is at coaching. They were going to have this same output anyway, because remember, Nick Saban had told the GM, well, he told the athletic director in Alabama back in 2022, he don't think that he can win anymore in this current landscape of college football, meaning, i.e., he can't lock up talent the way he used to and stockpile 4- and 5-star kids to fit a system and have this continuance and shared success that's out there. No, he cannot do that. Now everybody has the same weaponry. Everybody is allowed to spend money. The cat's out of the bag and it's the wild, wild west. So you have to play another team with equal footing. And may I remind you, the last year of Saban's career is that he got a sympathy vote to leapfrog an undefeated Florida State team. Yeah, how that works. People, like I said, you forget that shit. Everything I'm spitting is facts. So we fast forward into the future. Alabama's been disappointing. Now they're going to go ahead and play Missouri, and they need to win that game. Missouri's a ranked team. Missouri's been ranked all year long. I've called them fraudulent because they haven't really played anybody, and then they beat up Oklahoma. But hey, look, it is what it is. Then they play LSU. That's another loss. So they're in a must-win situation. I don't think a 3-loss Alabama team or a 4-loss Alabama team makes the college playoff. It's just not in them. They play some team called Mercer, and then they go on the road and play Oklahoma, and then they play Alabama. No, they play Auburn. I'm sorry, this is Alabama. It's all in the state of Alabama. in the Iron Bowl. Now, they do have the pleasure of playing two of the worst teams in the SEC in Oklahoma and Auburn. But if you can only beat the worst of the SEC, what does that say about your program? Honestly, what does that say about your program? So looking at them taking these losses early and how the season's really shaping up, I'd venture out there and I say this was a disappointing season. This was a disappointing season for the Crimson Tide. And I don't think that a 3 or 4 loss team, Alabama team, needs to be in a college playoff. Now, I know money and politics will always insert themselves because Alabama travels really well. And some of these states that they're going to depend on that fan base to kind of boost the local economy. But that's still not a reason to reward a subpar team that's having a mediocre season. Give me a quick 20 from a rap album we're promoting. We'll be back to close this out. This is Big Vern. It's your boy Big Vern promoting another rap album this month, The Crossroads by Cordy, in stores next month. This does not come out until November. My personal favorites on the track right now is Summer Drop with him and Anderson .Paak, Mad as Buck, Saturday Morning with Lil Wayne, and 210s featuring Anderson .Paak on the bonus track. Cordy, out next month. Get it where you legally consume music. This is Big Vern. Yeah, shout out to Cordy. I like that project. Crossroads. So, looking at our final team is Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a big disappointment right now. Brent Venables and the gang, 1-3 in the conference, 4-3 overall, 3-2 at home, 1-0 on the road. I don't know why they came to the SEC if they wasn't ready to compete, because their counterpart, Texas, when Texas and Oklahoma left the Big 12, you thought they were going to have more success in the SEC. They would have more exposure. I don't know what case Brent Venables can make for the Oklahoma Sooners. They play Ole Miss at Ole Miss. Then they play Maine. Then they have Missouri on the road. Then they play Alabama. And then they play LSU. So in theory, they could lose the next 3. Well, out of the 5 games left, they could lose 3 of those. They could lose 3 of those games. And if that happens, who do you blame? Who do you blame if that happens? Because the Red River Shootout wasn't competitive at all. They lost 34-3. And defense is Brent Venables' calling card, because that guy had that Clemson defense when they were winning titles with Deshaun Watson and Taj Boyd. He was actually the architect of those defenses, and Clemson was winning the national title back in, back out. If they wasn't winning it, they was in the conversation. But now to see what he's become, I mean, yeah, everybody's going to beat up on Temple. I don't even think Temple had a football team. That's no disrespect against the Owls. I just never heard of their football program ever, and I'm 47. So, hey, look, do with that what you will. Then there's Houston. That game came down to the wire, which had me and my rock eyebrow like, hey, look, Oklahoma, I think that's fool's gold, because here it is. That's the worst team right now in the Big 12. And you only beat them 12-16. But at that time, people were all, Houston might be pretty good. No, Houston was bad. It's just that Oklahoma was not better than that. And they showed it. The Tulane game is an outlier. Those 3 games, they never played anybody. And then when they had to have a step-up game against Tennessee, they lost 25-15. Then they barely survived against Auburn, one of the worst teams in the SEC, only to play Texas and get powerbombed 34-3. Not even worth looking at. Then they had the nerve to invite South Carolina up to Oklahoma and then have preceding South Carolina to beat the brakes off people in Oklahoma. That was embarrassing to take that kind of loss at home. So at the end of the day, these 3 programs, the Rebels, the Crimson Tide, and the Sooners, it's all a disappointing season. And coming into the season, they had high hopes. I know everybody had high hopes for Coach Kalen, because he just played in the national championship last year with Washington. And what a difference today makes. All the whining about how Ole Miss is one of those teams that if they had a shot to play for the national title, they would probably win it? No, they wouldn't. It would not happen, not on any planet. And then Oklahoma, because they play in the Big 12, you can only get one representative. Texas was taking all the shine. No, they wasn't. Texas is a good team. Oklahoma is not good. They need help. They need help. They don't have the pieces on the floor. So, if you're an SEC fan, is this the most disappointing season for the Rebels, the Tide, and the Sooners? In the comments, let me know. This is